dia. So it's a great pleasure to be here. This event will be in English and have translation for those who are not, don't want to hear in English and prefer to watch and the event in Portuguese. But it's a great honor to have here in CADE Professor Tiroli. He's, for us from Antitrust, he's a kind of a legend. So, and it's a great pleasure to have you here. The audience that we have here inside of CADE is 130 people, and have more 300 online. And this is something that I want to thank you, our Department of Economics, and we take that advantage of the conference that are happening in Central Bank that Professor Tiroli was speaking yesterday, and we asked him that if he could come to CADE and speak a little bit for you what he has been doing, and his last article about digital economy and the ecosystems. The name of the article is Fair Gatekeeping in Digital Ecosystems. So Professor Tiroli will be introduced properly by Lilian, but we'll have the honor to be a Nobel Prize, to have a Nobel Prize in economics in CADE. I hope you take advantage and also learn from Professor Tiroli this morning. And the dynamic of the event is not something very formal. Actually, we want to be more warm, to take the advantage to understand and, you know, bring our knowledge, the knowledge of Professor Tiroli to CADE. So at the end of the event, Professor Tiroli will answer some questions. I don't know how they organize with Lilian, but it's very important that we can take the advantage of Professor Tiroli here. So we have 1 hour of event. After this, he has another commitment and get a leave. So 45 minutes of presentation and 15 minutes to questions. So the question has to be in English, but if there is... hey, guys who are online, please turn off the mic. Thank you. And who are not comfortable to make the questions in English, our translator team are here to help and translate the questions. Okay? So I guess you don't want to hear from me anymore because you have been listening to me for many times. Before to give the floor to Professor Tiroli, I will pass the floor to Lilian to introduce Professor Tiroli a little bit better. And I want to actually apologize. I have to leave, but I have another meeting. I have to talk to Professor Tiroli before, and I hope you'll have a great event. So, Professor Tiroli, thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and I hope you enjoy. Lilian, you have the floor.
Thank you, President. Good morning, everyone. It's a true pleasure to welcome all another exciting edition of the Seminários of Economia and Defesa da Concorrência. Our presence here today underscores our shared commitment to exploring and also a vital topics in field of economics and competition defense. This series of seminars is designed to align with the mission of the Department of Economic Studies, which is to contribute to the generation of both technical and practical knowledge, as well as to foster academic research on critical issues related to competition defense. We are thrilled to have you join us on this journey of learning and discovery. I'm delighted to announce that today's discussion will feature a presentation by Professor Jean Tiroli, who will share the main findings from his study on fair gatekeeping in digital ecosystems. It's important to highlight that we are pleased to have both external participants and CADI staff join us today in person and also remotely. Professor Tiroli will deliver his presentation in English for the convenience of our audience. Simultaneous translation is available for those who prefer to follow the event in Portuguese. We encourage you to engage with questions, and also Professor said before that you can make some questions during the presentation. So only make a signal and we will have the micro. Now, allow me to introduce our esteemed speaker. Jean Tiroli's credentials are so remarkable that, in fact, his name alone is synonymous with excellence in the field of economics. However, we will follow the standard procedure and highlight some of his achievements. Professor Tiroli is the honorary chairman of the Foundation Lafon Toulouse School of Economics and the Institute for Advanced Study in Toulouse, as well as the scientific director. He is also affiliated with MIT, where he holds a visiting position, and the Institut de France. Professor Tiroli's research covers industrial organization, regulation, finance, microeconomics, and banking, and psychological-based economics. Jean Tiroli has published over 200 articles in international reviews, as well as 12 scientific books. Published in English in 2017, his latest book, entitled Economics for the Common Good, is accessible in a wide audience and available in a number of other languages. He is laureate of numerous international distinctions, including in 2007, gold medal, and 2014, Severance Risk Bank Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel. Without further ado, Professor Tiroli, the floor is yours. You can feel free to stand up and have the micro.
With a clicker?
Here.
Okay. And I can move around.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good morning. Thank you, Lilian, for those very kind words, and thank you to Katje for inviting me. I'll move around a little bit, so if you don't mind, because I don't like to stand like this. But it's going to be a great pleasure to share some thoughts about antitrust, a small part of antitrust, but an important one, on platforms and what we should be doing with them. And don't hesitate. I mean, if you want to ask clarifying questions, you can do so. But of course, we'll keep a few minutes at the end so we can exchange. So let me start with the challenge. I mean, the challenge, you know it. But if I had to simplify things tremendously, I would think, there is a dominant platform. It has various names, by the way, depending on the field you are in, if you are a lawyer or an economist, et cetera, et cetera. It's called a dominant platform. It could be a core service, an essential facility, a bottleneck. But the important thing is that it's going to control the business users' access to consumers. Those business users can be apps, merchants, advertisers, whatnot, but they want to interact with the consumers. It's two-sided platforms, to simplify. And there's been a number of laws. I'm just going to focus on the European ones because I'm a European. But, you know, of course, every country has its own laws. Probably the European ones are the most advanced in terms of scope. There are some which I'm not going to talk about at all. Those are the ones in green, which have to do with consumer protection, you know, which is, of course, part of a competition policy, but a specific part. Some in Europe have to do with behavioral manipulation, some with privacy, some with content curation. And those are important things, but I'm going to ignore them completely. Now, what I'm going to focus is what's in red with the Digital Market Act, and it has two branches. One is concerned with the fair access and the fair compensation for business users. Do they have the fair access to the platforms, meaning to the consumers? And do they pay a reasonable access price? Because otherwise they won't be fairly compensated for what they bring to the ecosystem. That's one aspect of it. And the other aspect is what's called contestability. Contestability means that the dominant platform might be replaced if more efficient platforms come in. So there are no barriers to entry in the platform market. Okay? Now, there are lots of debates nowadays about a lot of those platforms. Examples are Apple, Amazon, Booking, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, but there are also new ones coming with AI, for example. So OpenAI, you might think, you know, the same kind of issues are going to arise with this kind of AI-based platform. But if you look at NVIDIA, which is chip producers, but not only a chip producer, also a software producer, and that's very, very important, then you also have similar issues. So it's all over the place. Platform economics is very, very important. And we in Toulouse have been working on platform economics. The team in Toulouse and people all over the world have been working on platform economics, including actually one of the important recent contributors is Professor Renato Gomez, who is at the central bank here. We have this issue, and the DMA, two concerns, as I said, is equity and contestability. And equity itself, we call that equity in Europe. Equity itself has two facets. One is, do business users, again, the advertisers, the apps, the merchants, do they have equal access to the core services? And that's the issue of self-preferencing. So the platform actually might put its own products ahead, basically favor its own products over third-party products. Now, if you have a pure platform that is a platform which is not vertically integrated into apps or merchants and so on, there are platforms like this, Airbnb, Uber, Bookings. Usually you won't have self-preferencing because you have no self to favor. But that's one aspect. But there is the issue about, even for pure platform, that arises whether the business users are paying too much. Okay? So if you think about Apple, the App Store of Apple or Google, they typically will ask for 30% of the transaction. Now, is 30% of the transaction too much? If you think about credit card or PayPal or Apple Pay or something, It's typically 3%. Is that too much? That's the kind of questions we have to ask. And then there's a contestability issue. Now, starting with equity, if you are in the tradition of the Chicago School, you will say, this is not really an issue. And the starting point is not stupid at all. It basically says, if a platform creates a rich ecosystem, then it can raise the price of core services to consumers because it delivers a better service to consumers. And therefore, it's going to gain. It creates a rich ecosystem. There's competition among apps or among merchants. And therefore, the consumers will be willing to pay more for it. And conclusion, there is no incentive to hurt business users. There might be efficiency motive, but not anti-competitive motives. Okay? Now, this is a good starting point, but unfortunately, this is not the right conclusion. So, just to go back to the little diagram, you have the platform connecting the consumers to the apps or the merchants. Some are in-house, and some, so they are vertically integrated, and some of our third-party apps or merchants. This is a case of an hybrid platform. A pure platform, all the apps or merchants will be third-party. Now, what's wrong with the Chicago School argument? The first thing is that if you go back to my reasoning, or the Chicago School reasoning, basically, the idea is that if you create a better ecosystem, then you are going to be able to charge a consumer more. But that's not true. That's not going to work like that if you are at what's called the core zero lower bound. So if the price to the consumer is equal to 0, this is a different ballgame. Why? So let me first say, there are lots of prices which are equal to 0 for consumers. You pay nothing to use, Google, for example. All the services of Google are for free. When you go onto Amazon to shop, you don't pay anything. When you go to Booking, you don't pay anything. So the price is equal to 0, which is a zero lower bound, because of course you cannot have negative prices without creating arbitrage in general. Now, think about what a zero price means. A zero price means that you would like to charge a negative price to attract more consumers, because you make so much money on merchants that you would like to attract more consumers, but to attract more consumers, you are going to, you will have to lower the price. I mean, you can also increase quality, but by and large, you will have to lower the price. But if you lower the price, you attract lots of fake consumers, robots and the like, and it's not going to work. So you are at this. But if you would like to charge a negative price, that means that if you have a better ecosystem, you may not want to raise your price beyond 0. So the zero lower bound has an impact on the Chicago School argument. But there are other arguments. One is more subtle, and we'll see that later on. But on the app or merchant side, on the business side, you also have lots of zero lower bounds. And we'll try to explain why. So that means that the competitive segment is not going to work as a standard competitive segment. There may be a lack of competition. Because if you compete, again, sometimes you like to compete with negative prices. Why we are going to see that. But if you want to compete with negative prices, well, you can't, again, because of arbitrage. And if your prices are constrained to be 0, that means that the competitive segment, even if a priori it's very competitive, is not going to be competitive, because the price is not going to act as a competitive device. Finally, there is a third reason for why the Chicago School argument doesn't hold, but it has to do with contestability, and I suggest we leave it for the moment. If we have time, we'll discuss contestability later on. So there are lots of, let's start with the equity concern. There are lots of concerns with fair access and fair compensation. And actually, this is something I've been working on with a student of mine in Toulouse who will be taking a job at HBS later on, Michele Bisceglia, in a gatekeeping paper, which is yet unpublished. But there are lots of concerns about self-preferencing. You're expert in that field, and you know the names, but Google preferring its shopping services to third-party services, Amazon, there's a lot of academic work trying to think about whether Amazon is actually favoring its own products over third-party products and so on. But there are also lots of concerns about excessive fees. So we have those big cases about Epic Games and Spotify, which trying to circumvent the 30% fees of Apple in this case, but also they want to do that. Google, you have the story about best prices. It's also called most favored nation. You probably know that under the word most favored nation clause, which basically, in which a platform basically says you cannot charge less to the consumer if the consumer buys through another channel. Okay, just to simplify. There have been laws in Europe all over the place, including in France, the Macron law when he was a finance minister. There are local regulation of fees paid by the restaurants to food delivery platforms. They were asking also for 30% of the transaction. Many regulation in the US brought that down to 15%, and you have lots of other cases as well. Okay, so if you want to think about this issue, just think about how you will make money. So you are a platform, and you ask yourself, how can I make money out of this platform? And there are three ways. The first thing is that you can charge consumers. So it's like a subscription fee, a monthly, if you are subscribed to Netflix, for example, you pay per month. But mostly, I was mentioning the zero lower bound, the core zero lower bound. For many digital services, we actually don't pay for using the platform. So often this price is equal to zero. How does it work? No. Then you can make profits from third-party apps. So that's a 30 or 15% or 3% that you charge as an intermediary of a transaction between a third-party app and a consumer. Or you can profit from your in-house merchants, app, or advertisers. So you can, there are only three ways you can make money. And the merchant fee, and that's very interesting. So what we are going to emphasize is the role of the merchant fee. How much you charge to the merchant. And this merchant fee, if it's not regulated, may be set by the platform. That's the most common case. Usually it's ad valorem, but it doesn't have to be. It could be per transaction. But it could also be elicited. So there is something that you will not think of as being a merchant fee, but is really a merchant fee. So when Google or Facebook have display ads or search ads, they're actually charging a fee, which is an access fee. They give access to the advertisers. They have the advertisers pay for having access to the consumer. Okay? So you have, this access fee, we will call it A later on, can be set in three ways. It can be set by the platform, it can be set through an auction, or it can be set by regulation. Of course, what you are most interested in is, should we set it through regulation? And that's a research agenda, of course. The same picture again, I'm sorry, I'm using the same picture over and over again. So we have a two-sided platform. What we're going to emphasize is the case of single homing consumers, at least single homing in usage. So basically, the consumer, I tend to use, for example, bookings. I can use Expedia, I have it on my computer, that's not, or any other travel agency. But, same thing, I always use a credit card, the same credit card, or something like that, or the same search engine, okay? So I'm single homing, despite the fact that actually in membership I have more than one platform to choose from, okay? But of course, once you are single homing, that means that the platform has a monopoly access to you, right? Even so, there is competition. Booking may have, say, 20% of market share. There's actually a fair amount of competition. But once you are enlisted with a platform and you're using always the same platform, then the platform has a monopoly access to you. And therefore, it can charge a fair amount of money to the business side. So we are going to call A, the access charge set by the platform, A for access, okay? And again, it can be set by a platform, by an auction, or by a regulator. And again, I'm taking the case of an hybrid platform. In the paper with Michele, we look at both the hybrid platform and the pure platform. Now, let me make a distinction between a digital app and and a physical app. So a digital app means that it costs you nothing actually to provide the service. It's digital, so the marginal cost of providing the service to a consumer is equal to 0. But you're going to make money elsewhere. And this could be in-app advertising revenues, it could be in-app merchants fees, it could be the collection of data, and those data are valuable. It could be follow-up revenues. So you make money, if you make money today, you are going to make more money tomorrow because of habit formation or whatever. In that case, you have an ancillary benefit. So when you acquire a consumer, you actually make money. When you acquire and serve a consumer, you actually make money. And that means that your marginal cost is negative. Your opportunity marginal cost is negative. It doesn't cost you anything physically because it's digital, but you get money from data, you may get money from advertising revenue, from follow-up revenues, and so on. So B will be the ancillary benefit from acquiring a consumer. So that's interesting because you get a negative marginal cost. And if you get a negative marginal cost, that also means that competition will be weird. We are used to competition when the marginal cost is positive. Standard economics, we have a positive marginal cost. But if you have negative marginal cost, that means that the competitive price is negative. But of course, you cannot charge negative prices because otherwise there will be arbitrage. So that means that competition is different, okay? And we are going to see how. It's different from platforms which actually sell physical goods. So think about Amazon. Serving the consumer is not cheap. You have to send and buy this particular good, or book, or whatever. Uber, you have to pay the Uber driver, right? So you also have a platform in which you might think Uber is a digital platform. Yes, but the point is that there is a marginal cost which is positive for Uber or for Amazon, right? Whereas for Spotify, it's going to be a negative marginal cost. Okay, zero-low bounds. I should check on. So the zero-low bound. You have two possible zero-low bounds. I'm sorry, I come from the central bank conference, so I have to talk about zero-low bounds. But but they should not have the monopoly of the word zero-lower bound. So zero-lower bound is unlikely to be binding on the upside for physical good. Those will be negative, but for those with B positive, they will often be binding. And actually many of search services and marketplaces are free to consumers. Okay, many apps are free as well. Okay, so let's go back to the case of a secure gatekeeper. So a secure gatekeeper will be the case in which there is one monopoly. I mean, think about Google. The search engine of Google has been, until recently, has been basically a monopolist. And in Europe, I'm sure in Brazil, I don't know, but the market share, and you see, it could be quality of programming, but it's also a huge return to scale of having the information. So I don't want to use Bing. And when you see the size of the market, the amount of money Google makes in this market, it's very surprising that you have two, maybe three. But when you see the market share, it's just Google, right? Things are changing. Until 2 years ago, I would say this is a clear monopolist. Now with OpenAI and all those AI-based systems, things are different, right? There might be competition. There might be new monopolists actually replacing Google, and of course Google is very concerned about that because they had a huge rent. In that case, through advertising, they had a huge rent for many, many years. Okay, so what does the gatekeeper want to do, the platform want to do? Well, a standard monopolist, because if it has monopoly access to the consumer, wants to charge monopoly prices, so very high prices. There are several limits to that. The first is expose efficiency because you create double marginalization. So the platforms take its cut, its tax, and then the app may also do that if the app has market power. Okay, that's the Kurno double marginalization kind of effect. But there could be also an inefficiency ex ante in terms of entry into the app market. So there could be too little innovation, too little entry, and impoverished ecosystem. That's possible. If you have an unsecure gatekeeper, so it's not completely able to actually keep the consumer once it has caught the consumer. So typically, there is the issue of disintermediation. So if you charge a very high fee, what may happen is that the app or the seller might actually try to bypass the platform. So imagine that I go to Booking, and I find this wonderful hotel in Brasilia I dreamt of, okay? And then thank you, Booking. You gave me all the information I needed, the right advice, but I'm going to call the hotel directly, and you'll get zero. We are going to save your access fee, the 20 or 15% you are charging, how much is charged in Brazil. So you could go to the direct channel so as to avoid the access fee A. This can be one shot. So I'm coming to Brasilia one time, and then I still bypass Booking because I don't. Do you have Booking? So I bypass Booking.
Actually,
and I just.
we had also an investigation related to Booking.
Oh, okay. I don't have to tell you about
this
I don't have to tell you about this.
There was an agreement.
So I cannot ask you what it was.
Most favorite nations clause.
Okay, here we are. Yeah, no. So the most favored nation thing. If I have a few minutes, I will discuss the most favored nation thing. But it's even stronger for repeat purchases. So I know the CEO of BlaBlaCar. Do you have BlaBlaCar in Brazil? No. So basically,
BlaBlaCar, no.
so you
BlaBlaCar in
so
Brazil?
basically you
Yeah?
share
Okay.
rights with other consumers. So if I go from Toulouse to Paris with BlaBlaCar, that's fine. But if I want to do a commuting thing, and I live 30 kilometers away from Toulouse, you know, the first time I will pay BlaBlaCar, but the following times I will just arrange with the with this person I'm traveling with. And there are lots of examples like that. That's not fair either. I mean, maybe A is too large, maybe it's too expensive, but at the same time, A equals 0 is not fair because after all, bookings has provided a very useful service. So, of course, platforms understand that, and you do as well, which is you want to counter this intermediation. You can do it in ways which are perfectly fine, and you can do it in ways which are not fine. So, you know, let's start with the latter. You want to punish or constrain the seller, and you may actually have KG looking at what you are doing. So, you know, something which is important under DMA in Europe is basically cutting consumer-seller communication. You mentioned the most favored nation thing, which is, of course, trying to kill this intermediation by saying you have to charge as much, at least as much elsewhere. And then what's being done a lot also is demotion of the seller, downlisting on the platform. So basically, if you encourage your consumers, if you're an app or a merchant, and you encourage your consumers to bypass the platform, then basically you won't recommend. It's very important that when you have search, you won't recommend this particular business user to consumers. You downlist, you demote the seller. So that's not very nice. There are things which might be better and more acceptable with antitrust, which is that you lower the fees. So instead of 30%, you may have 10%, for example. What's important is the proportional fees. So, you know, the merchant fees, the shipping and handling fees. You can have fixed fees, or you can have something in between, like regressive fees. So Upwork, which is, you know, you want a plumber, or you want something like that, or you want, say, a programmer, a software engineer, and you want to hire an hour for a week, for a month, and you see the fee is only 20% is 20% for less than $500, but it's 5% if you are above $10,000. And the rationale, of course, is that you have more incentive to organize a bypass of the platform if it's a big number. If it's very expensive, you have more incentive. So basically, you can have fees which are regressive in the amount that is being paid. You can also try to make money from ads instead of making money from fees. Okay? Now, what is the regulator's point of view? Your point of view? Well, we feel in general that because there is monopoly of access to the consumer, there is a tendency to charge access charges which are too high. The regulator wants to lower access fees. Now, DMA is a very, I'm sure you have read the DMA, but it's a very interesting regulation, but at the same time, if you look at recommendation and what's to do, well, it's not completely clear because sometimes they mention friend, fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. And, you know, if you know the literature and the practice on standards of, you know, on standard, they use friend a lot, and that gives rise to lots of disputes. Because, you know, what does it mean to be reasonable? I don't know what it means to be reasonable. And, you know, that's a very dangerous policy to use friend. Now, 0 is a particular fee, but we are also going to see that 0 is also problematic. It raises issue. Now, let me see that right now, actually. So, if you are, let me see if I can see the, the standard, whatever. Imagine there is a zero access charge. That means the platform cannot make money out of giving access. You cannot make money in the wholesale market. So what you have to do is to make money in the retail market. You have to do it yourself. So there is a very strong incentive to vertically integrate, to mimic what the rival does, and to self-preference, to exclude the rival. And it's very easy to do. If you are a search platform like Amazon or like Google, then you are going to demote. I mean, people read only the first 5 or whatever listings. At least I do. At least I do. I'm a very lazy person, so I just read the first page, right? So if your ad, if your offer is on the 3rd page, I will never see it. Okay. So what happens is that if A equals 0, you cannot make money by giving access. So what do? You self-preference. It's as simple as that. So there are 2 solutions then. Either the antitrust authority checks self-preferencing and say, no, you are doing self-preferencing, and there are some cases like that. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and actually there are lots of very good studies in economics about Amazon. And they tend to conclude that actually Amazon engages in self-preferencing, but it's not clear whether it's for, if it's really self-preferencing in the sense that the consumer actually like Amazon for various reasons. They trust Amazon. And then, is that really self-preferencing? If the consumer likes Amazon products better because for whatever they trust Amazon, they think Amazon certifies the quality, for example, is that self-preferencing? So it's actually very, very difficult to prove that there is self-preferencing, okay? So that's a challenge. You have more experience than I do about doing this, but this is a challenge. Either you force a low access fee, but then you create a risk of self-preferencing, and then that means you have to regulate, very thoroughly the possibility of self-preferencing. Okay? The alternative, sorry, I should not have done that. Okay, no, that was. So the alternative is, of course, to have an access fee which is lower than what the platform would like, but not 0 because you want to give the platform a stake in being fair. Okay? Okay, so that's really the thing. Okay, so in the end, what is the optimal fee? Well, again, either you check self-preferencing, but that's very time-consuming. It's very difficult, and even the papers which I'm mentioning, which are extremely good papers by top academics in the US, they took 2 years to write. With very good data and so on, it's not that easy. Or you ask for, you tolerate some access fee which is not 0, but is enough in a sense, but not too high. So it's kind of the Goldilocks, Goldilocks story, not too hot, not too cold. It's a little bit like this. But what is the level? So that's where the research with Michele Bisceglia comes in. We say, actually, there's a good benchmark. And it's linked, for the economists in the room, it's linked to the Pigou's internalization of some externality. So actually, A equals B, which is a simple rule, A equals B. is not a bad benchmark. So basically an access charge which is equal to the ancillary benefit, okay? So it has several virtues, and I'm not going to be able to show you that today. There's a discussion paper on my website if you're interested. It's basically it doesn't incentivize self-preferencing. Why? Because anytime you have B less than A, that means that the platform makes more money by self-preferencing, by excluding the rival, because it's going to make B. And then by basically, I'm sorry, what did I say? Every time that A is less than B, that means the platform is not going to make much money by giving access. It's going to make more money by excluding the rival, okay? The competition, and that's where the competition argument is going to play. If you have an app zero bound, so basically the competition is blocked at price zero, which is often the case, then basically you are better off excluding the rival. So having A greater than B avoids self-preferencing, the incentive for self-preferencing, okay? At the same time, it's not too high. It doesn't squeeze the third-party app. So what we show is that there are very good incentives for innovation. You want a rich ecosystem, and that the platform would like to have, and the regulator also wants to have. So that's one dimension in which there is agreement between the platform and the regulator to have a rich ecosystem. So to have a rich ecosystem, you want an access charge which is not too high, okay? Actually, B equals B is the lowest level of access fee, which is not going to give rise to self-referencing. And it gives good incentives for innovation. Now, this is easy to say. I'm a theorist. So being a theorist, I can give you some recommendations which are based on the theory. The recommendations are very simple. A equals B. You cannot imagine something simpler. However, what is B? So B, the participant in the industry, more or less know it, but the issue is how to measure it in practice. Now, about 2 decades ago, I did some similar analysis for credit cards with Jean-Charles Rocher, and we got a similar rule, but specific to credit cards, and it was adopted by the European Union. But the European Union immediately has to think, how do I compute this number? And they did studies. You know, it's not an exact science. And you might imagine for different apps, it might be different numbers. Because B is an ancillary benefit that you make from in-app advertising, repeat sales, etc. You know, in-house markets and so on. So, you know, it's a complicated number, okay? So we discussed that, well, we say a little bit more than that, but yeah, we discussed that thing. By the way, the access fee, as I said, is not always set by the platform. So if you think about how is, and I come back to something I already said, how is set in practice, I mean, there is a broadly scripted condition, basically, okay, fair, reasonable, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, that doesn't help very much because we don't know what reasonable is. You could have a measurement by the regulator, which is what I was mentioning, the application of my work with Rocher by the European Union. You could have elicitation on the business side. And that's something we keep studying because we have some ideas on that, but they are not complete. In that case, it's not set by the platform, but it's set by the advertiser. They bid for slots, right? So if you think about Facebook or Google search, in that sense, they are not that different from Amazon and Booking. But A is elicited by the business users, which is not the case for Amazon and Booking, because there the fees are basically determined by the platform. Okay? Yeah, let me skip. In the paper, we discuss whether platform competition, which looks like this, or App Store competition, which looks like that. By the way, the App Store competition is mandated by the DMA. So Apple, in principle, has to accept rival app stores on its device. And of course, it drags its feet. It's not doing it at this stage. I mean, it proposes some fake competition, but it's not there yet. Okay. So that what we say, you know, this is not going to completely solve the problem. By the way, here there's something which is very important. So let me just take the App Store competition. Platform competition is something you are familiar with. The App Store competition is kind of new to all of us. But as I say, it's basically mandates that Google or Android or Apple open their App Store market to rival app stores. So Disney or American Express could have their own specialized app store, for example, whatever. Or they could enter each other market, even so that's pretty unlikely. But you see, so here you could create, and if the consumer multi-home, so if they use both app stores, then you will be creating competition on the iPhone, for example, right? But there are several conditions for this to work. The first is that you have consumers who actually are going to multi-home and use both. They are going to look at both app stores to compare the prices. The other thing is that you start with the dominant app store. So the Apple App Store is dominant by definition on the Apple iOS. And the issue is really that when a third-party app store is going to enter, then the platform will basically threaten the apps to actually downlist them. If you work with a rival app store, I will downlist you. And given that I have 19 or 95% of the market share to start with, you are dead. You should not underestimate the power of downlisting. So we were mentioning the most favored nation clause earlier. And I was in favor of prohibiting the most favored nation clause. Even so, there are good reasons sometimes to have it, but I was more or less in favor of prohibiting the way the Europeans have done the most favored nation clause. Now, some companies actually decided not to have the most favored nation or to abandon the most favored nation clause, but they were not constrained by regulators. They just chose it by themselves. Now, you may think there's something bizarre there, but it's not that bizarre because it's very, very easy in practice to recreate the most favored nation clause without having it in the contract. So there is this paper which is in small print here. This paper which look at the French hotels post the Macron law in 2015. So Booking, for example, had basically to abandon the most favored nation clause. But it changed nothing at all, almost nothing at all. Because Booking had the threat to say, you know, if you don't apply the most favored nation clause, which is implicit, it's not a contract, then I will downlist you, and you are dead. Okay? So, in practice, there was no effect on online travel agency prices and hotel websites. The most favored nation clause was still applied voluntarily by the hotels. The only place where it made a difference was offline stuff. Because, so if I went to the hotel by myself, and I say, how much will I pay for an hotel room? Then I will get a small discount because I was bypassing Booking. And the reason for that is that Booking could not verify whether I got a discount. But on the hotel website, or if I get a discount on Expedia, then Booking will know and will downlist the hotel. So in the end, the most favored nation clause had no bite, almost no bite. Even so, prohibiting the most favored nation clause had almost no bite. Okay? So this is all difficult. And maybe what I can do is, I need 4 more hours to finish the slides. So, given my schedule and yours, I suggest we
have all the time.
We have all the time. Watch out, you may be making a mistake here. Let me just wrap up this particular part, because we haven't talked, for example, about contestability, which is very important. But if you look at the DMA again, as you know, the DMA has, for the moment, 7 designated gatekeepers, Google, Amazon, Apple, and so on, okay? And Booking, TikTok. And then there are, for those gatekeepers, there are core services. So, for example, Google will have Google Maps, Google Play, Google Shopping, for example. And those are under scrutiny, but they represent lots of different cases, in a sense. So in the paper with Michele Bisceglia, we distinguish between those for which the app zero lower bound is binding, those for which the app zero lower bound is non-binding. So you get positive prices for apps, and same thing for the core services to the consumer. Okay? So you get lots of different cases. You have to understand that even so there is one theory which applies to all those platforms, in practice they are different, because some have a B which is positive. So, lots of different platforms which are digital. Their marginal cost is equal to, physical marginal cost is equal to 0. They get ancillary benefits from acquiring a consumer. And in that case, A may be less than B. Not if there is no regulation, but if there is, well, usually, if there is regulation, a cap by the regulator, you could have A less than B, very often. You also have various other cases you can consider. You also have the case of limited gatekeeping ability, because then you have to reduce A by the threat, because of the threat of bypass. Okay? But then, if you look on the other side, sorry, it's a bit small, but if you look on the other side, you also have cases in which A is greater than B, maybe because B is negative, actually, in that case, that's always the case. But if you think about e-commerce, for example, that's in the upper right corner. If you think about ad-supported media services and so on. So you can go through all the cases, in a sense. So what's interesting is that the digital economy is a very rich economy with lots of different cases, but at the same time, it's unified through a series. So they obey the same principle, in a sense. And that makes the task of regulators a bit more difficult, I'm sorry. A bit more difficult because, of course, you have to consider the diversity of cases that goes on. So I'm not going to go through all those things. And I'm not going to talk about contestability either. There are lots of interesting things to be said about most favored nation clauses, and I just wanted to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. Now you can open for any questions. You can hand your hands. Wait a minute, great.
Thank you.
Are you going to ask in English or in Portuguese?
It could be in English.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, Professor Terrell, it's an honor to have you here. I'm a great fan of your work. And, well, I would like first to give an example and then make a question. In Brazil, we have certain regions, especially in the northern area, where cable and internet providers usually have a monopoly over the providing of internet and for the consumers. But because there isn't high enough clients to, like if there were competition, like for example, TIM or Vivo, the two internet providing companies try to compete in those regions, they would both go out of business in that region. So perhaps in the internet, in the platform, couldn't it be good for the consumer to have a oligopoly or a monopoly, because there wouldn't be enough consumers to it be a sustainable business, for example, on that. I hope I made it clear.
Yeah, no, that's very clear. Thank you. It's an old issue that actually, thank you. It's an old issue that that dates back to the deregulation of the post office, the telecoms, electricity, and so on, where if you don't have enough demand to sustain the fixed costs, it's very difficult to get competition. So the question then is, do you have competition in the market, which is hard to realize to implement because there is not enough money to be made, and it's very hard to get competition between 3 or 4 firms. I mean, 2 might be a cozy duopoly, so it's very difficult then to get competition. And if you cannot get competition, then you need to have, in the market, you need to have competition for the market. So some kind of ex-ante competition in which you get a regulation and an auction, where the auction will be the auction for the right to be a monopolist, a regulated monopolist. So there are various ways of doing it. The question, one of the big questions is whether you want to explicit the entire regulation before the auction, or whether you want to try, it's just like, if you have a competition among architects to build a building, that's a monopoly, it's competition for the market. Then you need to, you might also ask for ideas, so you could have an iterative process where you also try to know what kind of scheme you might want to, so you might elicit some information for potential participants. It's not easy to do because you are negotiating already a little bit with the firms. But the important thing is that you have to organize competition and have commitment power, because you don't want to have behavior by the firms engaging in lowball bidding. Lowball bidding means that they offer a very high price for the concession, for example, then they will blackmail the government because they say, we are going to go bankrupt, you have to raise your prices, and so on and so forth. It's a very classical issue in defense procurement, for example. In defense procurement, what we have observed over the years is that often, in that case, the firms ask for too little, in terms of prices, and then they ask for updates and renegotiation. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the program, right? So you need a lot of commitment power by the government. And sometimes there may be a good reason to renegotiate because there's been unforeseen contingencies. But otherwise, you want to avoid that. But the bottom line is really that you need to have some kind of auction, some kind of ex-ante competition. If you cannot have exposed competition, you have to move forward in time competition through an auction.
Thank you, Professor. Any other question? Yeah. Are you going to make it in English or in Portuguese? Feel free.
Can be in English.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Professor. It's a pleasure to hear. It's a question from a lawyer, all right? I have to make this disclaimer. I really try to understand all the formulas that you made in the paper to explain your view, what can be the descriptions of fairness in the act. But I was taught that probably the DMA, the design of the DMA, it's not only pursuing efficiency, right? I think that if you understand that the DMA rules wants to foster European startups, maybe the question about what is fair may be different. I would like to hear from you this kind of view. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, you're right in saying that, of course, we want to develop startups in Europe. We don't do that enough. We have lots of talent and few startups, we have lots of startups, but few very successful startups. If you look at, it's not only Europe, by the way. If you look at the top 20 tech firms in the world, 11 are American and 9 are Chinese. If you look at the top 20 startups in the world, same picture. So, which is dangerous, by the way. It's very dangerous to have 2 countries dominating the tech industry and biotech industry. It's just not good for mankind. You need more competition. You need, more ability of other countries, BRICS, Europe, and so on. And you need to have more ability to compete with those 2 superpowers. And we see what's happening now when one of the superpowers we could trust, and we have been trusted for a long, long time, cannot be trusted anymore. You see the issue. So we need to encourage startups, and I've written a lot on that. We don't do it right, including in Europe. I've been very critical of what the European policy with respect to disruptive innovation. So I've been working a lot on that. That's one way to do it. Now, do you want to use a DMA to encourage startups? Well, in a sense, if you look at the theoretical analysis we pursue, it's linked with that, because when we say the access charge should not be too high, that means that you want to leave a fair enough compensation to innovators. And you want to protect the innovators. They can have a new business model, a new product to offer. If they are paying 30 or 40% and then being mimicked by the platform, they won't do that because they won't be able to monetize their innovations. So in a sense, you can see what I just talked about. And again, it's only a small part of the prime because it's much bigger prime, the prime of how to get startups. We want to protect the business users, including the startups. And that's something that is very important. So I still will, I'm talking like a lawyer when I use fairness, right? We know that we actually talk about the same thing very often, but often in different terms, right? it's true that the paper is really about efficiency. But, DMA uses equity, right? Equity is almost a moral judgment. I don't think there's much moral judgment there. It's really, but I still use the word. It's really an efficiency perspective. We want a rich ecosystem. We want platforms to be competitive, not to overcharge the consumers, and so on and so forth. So we want what antitrust authorities also want. And, I include the promotion of startup in that efficiency part.
I think you may have only one question.
Good morning. Hi. I'll speak in poor English, but I'll try to make myself to understood. I'm Pablo Bello. I'm working at the Ministry of Finance here in Brazil. My question is regarding your perspective on how to, it's clear that there are huge competition issues on digital platforms and that issues are affecting the whole economy in a systemic way. From the political or institutional perspective, how do you think that will be the best way to handle that? Asking because we are here in Brazil thinking, and actually we are very close to submit to the Congress a bill of law to give powers to the antitrust authority, to the competition authority here in CADE, to introduce some ex-ante rules for specific platforms in order to address some of the concerns on competitions, exclusivity, contracts, and some of the issues that you described. But my question is regarding your perspective in which one is the best way to handle that from the institutional framework and regulatory framework, considering the political restrictions that we always have everywhere, but especially here in Brazil, that's pretty complex, as I probably know.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to say anything that you don't know, but we do need a framework. So lots of people criticize Europe for being, a regulatory giant and a digital midget, or it's true that Europe does very little innovation, especially in comparison with the talent which is still in Europe. So we just don't want to do only regulation. And regulation, that's my general philosophy. It has been the philosophy in my entire career, has to be smart. Regulation is not there to stop innovation and to stop industry. I mean, you know that, but it's worth repeating because, you get the laissez-faire people who just want, things to happen by themselves, and of course they will never happen by themselves. And then you have the regulators sometimes who just want to block everything, and they don't express this in those terms. So we want to have smart regulation. Smart regulation, the difficulty is often it requires regulation that doesn't require too much information. So if you look at the paper I just presented, I didn't represent it, but the theory is very simple, A equals B. I mean, you cannot think of a simpler theory. You know exactly what the benchmark is. But then it's actually information intensive because, B has to be measured, has to be estimated in some way. There may be appeals procedure. So you might say, we are not going to regulate A, but there will be an appeal. You will try to measure if it's too far away from B. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult. So the first thing is smart regulation faces the obstacle that it should not require too much information from the antitrust authority because the antitrust authority doesn't have enough staff and enough time to actually measure everything, right? It's difficult. We don't have the elasticities. We don't have many other things. The ancillary benefits and so on are not always available. We need ex-ante stuff, and I'm on the side of the Europeans on that. I think it's used. I'm not a big fan of GDPR, for example. I think GDPR has a number of flaws, but still I'm proud that the Europeans introduce GDPR because we need such a regulation, right? There's no question about it in my mind. We need some form of GDPR. Now we can improve GDPR. You know, it's far from being perfect. So I'm both critical, but I'm proud that the Europeans introduced that. And if you think about the DSA, DMA, and so on, it's a good start. And, you know, very imperfect, but a good start. The thing that you have to contemplate in Brazil, we have to contemplate in Europe, is that things move fast. And that's, you should not basically cast everything in stone because of two things. The first is that we make mistakes. You know, we are not, you know, we don't know everything. We see that with the regulation. We learn over time. You know, research progresses and we have new ideas and so on. But also because the technology changes over time and very fast. So, you know, I was mentioning 2 years ago, I was thinking Google was an awful monopolist. And it was, to some extent. It was bringing a huge amount of value. I use Google a lot. I like Google. But at the same time, you know, it made a huge amount of money because of its monopoly position. But at the same time, if you think about it, I said, you know, with internet, things change. With AI, with AI, things change. So actually, an eye-opener to me was actually a student at MIT who was listening to my lecture, and he said, he came in with the last version of, one of the early versions of OpenAI, and he said, where do you want to go? Which country do you want to go? I don't remember what I said, but okay, I said a country. You want to spend, what, a week? And what do you like? Well, I like art, I like opera, I like landscapes, I start describing. And then within, and that was in one of the early versions. And, you know, basically, he gave me something which was better than Booking almost. Didn't have quite the recommendation in terms of, because it didn't have the database. But, you know, he said, you know, I can buy the ticket from you at 10:30 a.m., and then you'll be there, you'll have 2 hours there, and you can have lunch there. And shall I buy all those tickets? And I said, oh, Booking, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, Booking. Of course, Booking is better in some, because they have the entire database, all the ratings and things like that. I say, you know, here is some competition. Google is in trouble as well, because when I search, you know, actually I search more using OpenAI. I still use mainly Google, but, you know, I start using OpenAI quite a lot. And I know it hallucinates, but you know, there are ways of solving the issue by actually sending you to some real references. And, you know, what I'm just saying in general, technology changes fast. So if you basically cast in stone the regulation, that might be a little, and also the DMA, I mean, think about the DMA, the designated gatekeeper. You know, in 2 years from now, they might be very different. Who knows? So you need to be agile and you know, that's what I was saying. But you know, the fact that you need a framework, I think, is a very good thing, as long as it's flexible enough.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah, of course. The last one,
Thank you.
Commission. Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah, can I make a question?
Very quickly, because
Very quickly,
Camila
okay.
wants to.
Thank you for the organization. And I'd like just a brief question. Since this literature is evolving, right, and we basically running after the developments that we actually see in the digital economy, I'd like to know how is the research agenda in platform economics, and if possible, a bit on IO in general. I would like to hear your view on that. Thank you.
If I had to criticize economists, myself actually also, is that we don't anticipate issues
enough. I mean, we try to do that, but often we are relatively good at explaining what has happened in the past, and we learn from history, but we also have to anticipate a little bit. I mean, if you think about the future of work with AI, for example, we need to do that. There is something terrible which might happen, but how do we anticipate that and make sure that doesn't happen and we get all the great things of AI? So we need to engage in what I call social science fiction. But the best way to do it is to encourage research in economics. Have a close connection between economics, academics, and the economists, in government and in firms, because they also have lots of things to teach us. I've learned a lot. Sorry, I'm speaking too long, but something I liked a lot when they wrote the 53 or 54 pages concerning my work for the Nobel Prize, for the Nobel Committee, is that there were a bunch of things that, a bunch of researches that actually were inspired by discussion with, like this one, with agencies, with governments, with companies, with private companies, and so on. Because an economist, an academic economist, is in his or her ivory tower, has all the tools, all the techniques, but is a bit removed from practice. So we need to have this thing. So, and nowadays it's a little bit easier. So, for example, the Toulouse School of Economics with partner universities has a weekly seminar on digital economy, where you can participate from all over the world. And we exchange ideas and things like that. We need a vibrant community to make progress and give relevant advice to policymakers.
Thank you. And now the last one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Professor, first, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure and an honor, and also very honored to have an audience very mixed of interest. And so we see people from the agents, students, professors, academics, and lawyers, and some people from the government as well. So my question is quite a complementary question that was made previously. So we heard about competition for the market. We heard about contestability. We heard about innovation. And we heard about regulation. And I do understand that in your view, and it's my view as well, those things are all in the same package, and they have to be in the same package. So when we are in the same box. So when we are talking about the necessity of contestability, or when we are talking about the necessary of competition for the market, we are also thinking about innovation process, and it's not only startups, but also how the innovations is going to be dynamics in the medium and long run. So I think that how we think about, and I wanted to hear your opinion, of course not my opinion, is that how we think about regulation is how to deal with innovation. And it's not a denial. It's not saying that regulation is a problem per se for innovation, but we have to think about how to do that. And so thinking about the design of doing this, and I understand that flexibility is important, but I wanted to hear if, in your opinion, there is another level of flexibility. So thinking about a better understanding of how innovation works in each kind of gatekeeper or each kind of platform or ecosystem developments. In it has to be seen, I understand, in constantly. But I wanted to hear if you have any impression of which would be a better design of being more able to see how the innovation really works in each ecosystem or each gatekeeper of it. It's my question.
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I have the answer, but something we will agree on is that innovation, as I said, is very broad. It depends on many policies. And antitrust is just one of those policies. Keeping the access conditions fair. So basically, prices not too high and no discrimination against third-party apps is certainly something that helps. But again, innovation is not totally well defined. It's very broad. It goes from rocket science to a simple business idea. And you might think Uber, for example, is a set of simple ideas. I mean, it's nothing new in a sense in the Uber success. It's a tremendously useful platform, but at the same time, every ingredient was already known. But still, you might think it's an innovation to bring all those together in the context of ride-hailing companies. So there is the platform stuff, then there is various other things. I mentioned earlier the issue about government schemes that encourage innovation, which in many countries are very imperfect. The US, they work very well. I mean, from the US side, with very independent agencies like DARPA and NIH and SF and so on, BARDA, really doing very good work until a year ago. But doing extremely good work to promote innovation, so that's good. But then there are other things, so the institutions, and that also is linked with antitrust. So Josh Lerner, who is a professor at Harvard Business School, and I actually just finished a week ago a manuscript, which will be a book on a specific aspect of innovation, which is the cooperation among firms, and innovation. So one of the challenges you face is that now innovators, they are not alone, and they have to share their intellectual property. Think about a patent pool, think about standard setting, think about open source software. It's not one innovator, it's a multiplicity of innovators with different intellectual property rights. And that raises issue because that means that people, IP owners, intellectual property owners who actually might also compete in the marketplace have to cooperate in order to make their various pieces of intellectual property available to the consumers or to the implementers. And that raises competition policy issues. So that's the kind of things we discuss, those collaborative arrangements in the book. We just turned in the manuscript, so it's not yet a book. It's going to take a while, but just to try to do, what are the antitrust issues with that? How can we deal with them? So that's another dimension. So innovation actually touches on many aspects of government policies. It could be funding agencies. It could be the antitrust authorities through the dealing with platforms. It could be antitrust authorities through regulation with respect to patent pools or with respect to standard setting organization. So it's a very broad, and then of course it also depends on education. It depends on many, many things. So it's a complex thing. Innovation is a crucial thing, but it's also a very complex object that we have to work on through many, many different aspects.
Thank you, Professor. I must say that we are already, we look forward for this next book. As we conclude today's session, I want to extend our heartfelt thanks to Professor Jean Tirole. I can say that not only for myself, but for many of us here today, this is a day that will be forever in our minds. Thank you very much for your willingness to come here to CADE. I also want to thank you, all of you, for your participation. We kindly ask for your understanding because Professor Tirole will not be able to stay for individual photos and also for any autographs because he has to leave immediately to next appointments. But we can take one picture, a big group picture, so it's a very good opportunity to have this event in memory. And once again, thank you, and we hope to see you in future events.
Thank you very much. Thank you.